Hey guys, which Resident Evil game do you consider to be the scariest? I go first. I choose Resident Evil 6. It's by far the scariest because it put me to sleep immediately. Resident Evil is a franchise that constantly evolves to keep up with time. From the original PlayStation trilogy to the latest installments, Resident Evil has undergone quite the evolution from locked perspective with tank controls to first perspective pan-pissing horror. But in between these changes comes a very awkward phase of the franchise, where it felt like Capcom didn't know what to do with the series. And that started with Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is one of the most influential video games of all time. If you played any third-person shooters like The Last of Us, Uncharted, Panty Party, chances are they were influenced by Resident Evil 4. Departing from the franchise tense and claustrophobic locked perspective, Resident Evil 4 took a different approach when it comes to horror. The switch to third-person perspective brings the blood and gore closer to the player than ever before. Oh, that's gore of my comfort character. With the new control, Resident Evil combat has evolved from aiming in the dark and hoping you hit something, to precise laser pointers showing you where exactly you're aiming. The game encourages you to engage in combat, but also to save your resources, as each enemy are designed with purpose. I often had to make decisions like, do I murk this guy for a 50% chance of dropping more bullets, or do I save my shotgun bullets for the next area? This makes the game incredibly balanced and fun to play, making you consider each bullet you shoot, and each weapon you upgrade. You can also start the game with any guns of your liking and end the game with the same gun. Meaning, yes, you can reach the end of the game with just your handgun and probably a sniper rifle. The environmental designs are also beautifully done, with each area feeling like they're connected to each other in a seamless way. The village, the church, the castles, and despite being my least favorite, the laboratories. These areas look incredible for a GameCube game. Each part of the maps are designed for the players to explore, every single nook and crannies. It's always worthwhile to turn around and backtrack to find hidden weapons or treasure. And oh boy, the treasures. The treasure systems in Resident Evil 4 is probably one of the most satisfying systems I've ever experienced. Finding treasures and then combining them to sell at the highest price possible feels almost better than having an orgasm. You can find treasures with missing parts and combine it with gemstones, which gives you more Perseda than selling the pieces separately. This also encourages subsequent playthroughs and also exploration, as you can find these treasures ahead of time and stock them up to find new weapons. And oh, have I talked about our Lord and Savior, the Merchant?
Over here, stranger.
Bought a bus. The most memorable part in Resident Evil 4 for me was the fight with El Gigante, or whatever his name is. After you defeat the giant, you go back to the merchant's hideout and hear this. Resident Evil 4 has some incredible set pieces. The village with Chainsaw Man, the fight with the two El Gigante, the minecart section, and the incredibly infamous cabin scene. But none of these levels could live up to the pure euphoria of hearing Serenity after a long playthrough. This, in my opinion, is what Resident Evil is. Limping back to the safe room after a fight with the Licker. Saving after an encounter with Nemesis. Visiting the merchant after blasting through hordes of villagers. Coming back home after work. This is the Resident Evil I have in my head. It's the Resident Evil I love. Well, Resident Evil 4 isn't scary in the sense of conventional horror game. It still gets the job done with the enemies and the sound designs and everything. And coming back to the save room after it's all over is truly one of the best feelings. After the incredible success of Resident Evil 4, Capcom released a few spin-off games for the 3DS and Wii, and then finally released Resident Evil 5. Being a sequel to Resident Evil 4, 5 takes many things from its predecessor with improvements to the controls. This time, you can turn your camera without it snapping back into place. Now that's design. Many fans of the series consider Resident Evil 5 to be the point where the franchise pivots toward an action-oriented gameplay rather than horror. And yeah, I can see why. Resident Evil 5 is a train that just keeps on going. Every single area involves some sort of bullet dumping with persistent and fast enemies that feels like they were made for Left 4 Dead. With Resident Evil 4, the enemies were designed around the tank control. They're slow, so you have time to shoot for their weak points or strategize. Resident Evil 5 enemies are fucking bullet sponge. You have hordes of infected running towards you while there are flying monsters ahead, and the only way you can aim is if you stand still. it gets repetitive really fast. You never have enough ammo for these guys, and what makes it worse is the inventory system. My child, what have they done to you? Resident Evil 5 dumped the satisfying inventory system in Resident Evil 4 for a piece of shit 9-slot live inventory. Resident Evil 4 inventory was amazing, not only because of how insanely satisfying it is to manage and rearrange your items, but also because it acted as a quick pause to the action that is going on outside of the inventory. You can open your inventory in dire situations and combine items, switch weapons, equip grenades, or heal without being hit or killed. How am I supposed to combine items while enemies are shoveling towards my face, if every time I open the inventory my fucking character stands still and everything else is still happening? The design is egregious, and the reason why it's there in the first place is because of my next complaint. Co-op. Resident Evil 5 was designed first and foremost for multiplayer, and you can definitely tell when you're playing it alone. The inventory system and how you have to give your partner items and manage their health and do QTE with them, it screams, you need a friend! I've heard many fans say that Resident Evil 5 is better with a friend, but I've never gotten to experience it myself. I just know that the next time Shiva stands in front of my fucking laser pointer, I am going to lose my shit. The AI in this game reassures me that my job as an artist is perfectly safe because, oh my god, you have to manually give Shiva bullets, weapons, heals, and get her out of the way of an enemy's attack because she has the same health system as an actual player. Which is ridiculous. It really took Ashley's AI, gave her a gun, and took away her intelligence because Shiva loves laser pointer. She just can't get enough of it. Another thing they removed from Resident Evil 5 was the save points and merchants. Traded for a shop and menu and automatic checkpoints, Resident Evil 5 feels so different. The safe area you go to after each fight is now gone, replaced by a menu with text on the screen. I mean, the music is still there, but like, you know, it's on a menu. Resident Evil 5 is not a bad game per se. I did enjoy it quite a bit at the start, but due to its repetitive combat and shoved co-op functionality, the game took a quick dive in quality and gameplay in general. But with all its flaw, I am so happy that it's at least not Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 is what I like to consider a part of the Spider-Man 3 syndrome. So many storylines, so many campaigns, and characters, and so boring! After Resident Evil 5, Capcom decided to dig even deeper into their own graves by turning Resident Evil into a tactical shooter. With 4 campaigns to choose from and 20 hours of content, Resident Evil 6 felt like a 3-hour-long movie no one wanted to see. They gave each character the ability to perform sick finishers. I mean, look at this. This is survival horror? Who am I playing as, the horror? They have also redesigned the UIs and menus into these futuristic HUD display. You know what gets me scared the most? Matching red and green pills as Iron Man. The developers stated that they want each campaign to suit different types of playstyle that would appease all the players. But this did not help at all, and instead led the game into an identity crisis. There are ideas that could have worked on their own, but in the end, failed because they were mixed together. Do you enjoy cereal? Do you also enjoy hot dogs? And do you also enjoy cooking? Resident Evil 6 was said to be too bombastic, even in Hollywood standard. While the previous games had emphasis on action, they did not go as far as to make characters slide, punch, and kung fu their way out of situations. Running out of bullets in Resident Evil 4 is scary. Running out of bullets in Resident Evil 5 is annoying. Running out of bullets in Resident Evil 6 means... Honestly, if Resident Evil 6 was packaged as a different game entirely, with a different name and franchise, it would have probably been so much more positively viewed. Here are my positive reviews for Resident Evil 6. The graphics looks great. The gore system looks awesome. The actions are fun. You can move and shoot. Ada looks amazing. And Leon looks like a wet cat. And now here's the internet criticism of Resident Evil 6. The level design is dog shit, that's my main complaint. You have all these cool mechanics that you can never use because the game is too busy trying to impress you with shitty set pieces. John Woo backflip over an explosion while raining down dual-wielding, paying down a gorilla fly doesn't really sit well with Spencer Mansion. What the fuck? The set pieces all look similar. The environmental puzzle is quick time events for bullshit like falling rocks and twisting cracks 100 times. RE6 is like a garage band made an album remixes of your favorite songs on shuffle. There might be some good ideas and an idea behind the covers, but every time you recognize which song the remix is based off of, you want to hear the original again. Just feels like shit happens. It just feels like shit happens just it happens. Overall, it was a strange time for Resident Evil. It's not like the franchise immediately sank into the ground and forever forgotten after this. We did get amazing sequels in the form of Resident Evil 7 and 8. There are still amazing games no one is playing because, I don't know, they're not on main platform, it's not mainline, like the Revelation series. Those were great games. These games are not unplayable by any means. If anything, they're way better than whatever Silent Hill did with their franchise. Overall, it's okay to enjoy trash. Just because it tastes bad doesn't mean it can't go into your mouth. Okay, now between you and me, I don't think Resident Evil 6 is even that bad. Honestly, I think